Biking is cheap and cheerful. If the sun's out, the traffic's thin and you've time on your hands, it's the ideal way to get around. But it's not always so easy. There are thousands of students, for example, who simply couldn't afford to travel any other way. The cycling students of Hammersmith and West London College have extra worries about their wheels. There's simply nowhere to park their bicycles. But what's all the fuss about? There's a handy bicycle rack right in the college forecourt. But take a wider look. This isn't like any bicycle rack you've ever seen, because this is a sculpture. It was constructed by world-famous sculptor Anthony Caro. It cost £15,000, but as far as the students of this college are concerned, it makes a far better bicycle rack than it does a work of art. The sculpture is called London West, and when it was commissioned to bring a touch of class to the brand new £7.5 million college, no one expected the enormous row that's blown up. But the students simply don't like it. They think the money could have been better spent on a more deserving cause. And as for appreciating its artistic merits, they've called it a pile of builders' rubbish. When they arrived at their brand new college, they simply thought it was a bicycle rack and have been disrespectfully chaining their bikes to it ever since. But the reaction of top sculptor Anthony Caro to the desecration of his work is hardly what you'd expect.
I don't feel bad about people putting their bicycles against it for a start. I mean, I don't want them to in the end, but I mean, it's quite a friendly thing to do, to put your bicycle against the sculpture. Now, I hope in time that they'll get used to this thing being there, and then they'll begin to respect it a bit more, and they'll start to look at it when it doesn't have a bicycle against it. And they'll say, yes, I like it, you know.
But you could have forgiven Mr. Caro if he'd been angry. He is, after all, one of the world's top sculptors, considered second only to Henry Moore. His sculptures have been bought by prestigious art galleries in America, and he has an entire room of his work in the Tate. His last sculpture sold for a staggering $45,000 in the States, so the mere £15,000 fee for the student sculpture was a bargain. But it isn't all profit. He has to pay for his full-time assistant, Pat Cunningham, the upkeep of his studio, and the expensive materials he uses. He sees himself as running a small factory. Then there's the price of his reputation. Many people find it hard to understand why modern sculpture is worth anything at all, but Anthony Caro is no snob about his work.
I think I've tried to make sculpture a little bit less pompous, a little bit more accessible to people, a little bit more something you look at and you either like it or you don't, but you take it as seriously as you would a painting. But it isn't made into that kind of outside our world thing, you know, which a lot of the old sculpture used to be. I work a lot with Pat, and Pat and I, you know, I'm always saying to Pat, you know, what do you think? What do you think? And he says, well, something seems to be wrong. There's an emptiness here, or, you know, and we work like that. I find that's very refreshing to have people come in to give you a new take on your work, and so I always listen. I don't always do what they say, but I always listen. If you look at an awful lot of sculpture, then you know what you like, and there's a certain amount of validity to your opinion. Like I was saying about, you know, Top of the Pops or something. I don't know what's the good ones and which are the bad ones, because they don't listen seriously. But the people who listen seriously, they know which are the good tunes.
But the subtleties of Caro's work is lost on the students, and back in Hammersmith, the temperature's rising. The great man himself has bravely agreed to come and face his critics.
Well, we think that because of all these education cutbacks, to spend £15,000 on a sculpture that no one really understands is a complete waste of money.
The main thing is whether you get some pleasure, whether you get some, whether it lifts your heart a little bit as you walk out of that building there.
Does it lift anybody's hearts?
Really, no.
Do you object to it having a use? I mean, people putting bikes on it. Do you object to that?
Well, I think as you get more used to it, you'll respect it more. You won't put bicycles on it.
Why do you put bicycles on it? Has there any...
How's there's no bicycle?
bike rack.
I'm sorry, what?
First day I came into college, I thought it was a bike rack because I saw bikes.
Did anybody else think it was a bike rack? What do you say to that, Tony?
I see no reason why you shouldn't make that mistake. It's a perfectly reasonable mistake.
Do you not think, though, that even if you don't appreciate or understand modern art, it certainly made you think again about it, this?
Yes, I think it ought to be in a place where more people can see it. I mean, you know, just outside the college so the public can see it as well as the students.
Well said.
Who would like to see this sculpture taken away?
No, it's here.
Why not?
Part of the college, you know, it was here when we started.
That's the nicest thing I've heard. You see, you are actually getting used to it. You are getting accustomed to it. And one day, come in a bit before the bicycles come in and have a good look at it and see whether you like it or not. That's all.